Hi everybody, I'm Dan Pilla. I'm a tax litigation consultant and author of 14 books on dealing with the IRS, and I'm here to talk to you today about the government shutdown, in particular, how the government shutdown is affecting the Internal Revenue Service, and even more particular than that is how the government shutdown is affecting you and your tax return filing and your tax refunds. So I want to talk about that right now. We are now in day 26 of the shutdown. Up to this point, about 87% of all IRS employees have been sent home. And I got to tell you, it's pretty nice not having IRS employees harassing my clients, but the fact of the matter is we have to deal with tax return filing because the season will open. The tax return filing season is scheduled to open on January 28th. That's when you will be able to start submitting your tax returns to the federal government for processing. Now, here's the thing that's concerning people. About 85% of every tax return that's filed gets a tax refund. And so people are concerned, are they going to get their tax refunds during the shutdown? Well, the IRS issued an interim plan for dealing with tax administration during the government shutdown. They released that plan on January 15th. And so here's what they're telling us. They're recalling 45,000 of their employees. So that'd be about half their workforce coming back specifically to deal with tax return filing, processing, and tax refund processing. Okay, so that's the good news for folks that are going to get a tax refund. The IRS is going to be there to process those returns and issue those refunds. We think they're going to be there. And the reason I say that is because the National Treasury Employees Union has sued the federal government over the question of whether the federal government actually has the authority to force its employees to come back to work without pay. Because as long as there's no budget deal, these employees are not getting paid. And so the Treasury Employees Union wants an injunction, and they're going to be in court this week seeking an injunction in Washington, D.C. to prevent the federal government from bringing these people back to work. So now we've got a fight right within the federal government itself. It's not just between the Democrats and the president. That's no longer the scope of the fight. The fight has gone beyond that now. Now we got the employees unions fighting with the federal government over whether or not the government can force those employees back to work. Now, historically, every time there's been a government shutdown, these furloughed employees have been given back pay, and there's no reason to believe they won't be given back pay this time, but of course we don't know that as we sit here. So that's what the legal fight is all about. You need to know, however, that just because the federal government is fighting amongst itself within the Treasury Union and the IRS, and Republicans are fighting, or I should say Democrats are fighting with the president, that doesn't mean that you don't have an obligation to file your tax return. You still have to file your tax return on time, and if you don't file your tax return on time, the IRS is going to charge you with the failure to file penalty. And that failure to file penalty is up to 25% of the amount of the tax liability. So friends, just because there's fighting in paradise, there's no longer joy in Mudville here anymore with respect to the federal government, doesn't mean that you're off the hook with your filing obligation. You are not. And so if you face a penalty or if for this filing season, or if you face a penalty for prior tax obligations, I want you to get my book, The IRS Problem Solver. The IRS Problem Solver has 2 chapters in it that specifically show you how to deal with tax penalties. It will walk you through the process of reducing or eliminating those penalties altogether. Every single penalty provision of the tax code has what's called a good faith or reasonable cause provision. And it means very simply that if you acted in good faith and based on a reasonable cause for your actions, and you did not deliberately disregard IRS rules and regulations, then the penalties do not apply. And the book shows you how to get rid of the penalties and the interest on the penalties. And I'm telling you, friends, it's very valuable information, and it will help you tremendously. So you can order that book at my website, which is TaxHelpOnline.com. It's all one word, no spaces of any kind. You see it on your screen here, TaxHelpOnline.com. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.